The time is ticking for the Z Fighters and pretty much everyone else as well, as the countdown to the multiversal war began in the previous chapter of Dragon Ball Kakumi. For our quick thinkers like Gohan, Vegeta, and Bulma, plans are already in motion for who and what type of training would take place over the next 2 years, as Bulma traveled to a faraway planet in Universe 7 known as Vampa to retrieve a very interesting warrior who's sure to come in handy in a battle against, well, gods. Gohan, on the other hand, had different things in mind, but also wanted to make sure he included the Earthlings as well, as everyone will have to be able to at least defend themselves in the coming battle. Gohan himself, however, would take things to the next level, as he chose to spend his time not with Krillin and the others in Universe 9, not with Whis and Goten and Trunks in the God Realm, but to approach Toppo, Dispo, and Jiren in Universe 11 with a proposition of his own. With the wheels now in motion on the war against mankind, Vegeta has chosen the path of aligning himself with the other Saiyans, those inhabiting Universe 6 to be exact, as we see him land on planet Sadala, met by a slew of Saiyans right away. Of course, these low-ranking warriors are easily defeated by Vegeta, but as he's wrapping things up, Caulifla appears and isn't too happy to see her comrades beaten up and unconscious. A while before this, we also found out the fate of Goku as well, as Gohan is informed by Vegeta that Goku has not only been missing for a while, but that he was also inside Universe 0 as the Grand Priest froze Kansei, the Mother of the Angels, and the rest of the unsealed deities in place. Even with Goku out of the picture at the moment though, plans really haven't changed, and for some, Goku being the one in danger this time is just pushing them that much harder, even doing things they would have thought insane before. It's an amazing time to be a Dragon Ball fan right now with such quality literature that we have to read, and if it were accompanied by the anime, we'd deadass be in the perfect timeline. But Dragon Ball Kakumi might just be what we've been wanting all along anyway. As Chapter 4 begins, we find ourselves on planet Sadala in Universe 6, as Vegeta comes to confront the king, but instead has been confronted himself by rugged Saiyans and eventually Caulifla. What the heck is he doing here, she yells as her temper flares from just the sight of Vegeta. What was that? Kappa yells back from behind the cliff, he and Kel still not having seen what's going on. Well, there's your idol who just smashed up members of our people, she says as she points to Vegeta. My idol? Who are you talking about? Kappa says, but he stops short as he and Kel see Vegeta now as well. Be kind and stop being childish. Take me to your king, Vegeta says. I have no time to lose. What this ultimately does, however, is just piss Caulifla off as she begins ranting and raving at Vegeta about just showing up here, beating up their friends, and now trying to give them orders. Which, you know, she does kind of have a point, but time is money right now. There's something off about this girl, Vegeta says to himself. What kind of rabbit dog is she? As Kappa continues trying to hold back Caulifla from honestly just doing something stupid right now, Vegeta turns his attention to Kale in the meantime and asks her to please just take him to the king, to which she agrees. Okay, I'll calm down, Caulifla says, just to make Kappa let go of her, to which he stupidly believes. Don't let go of her, Kappa, Vegeta warns, but before he can even ask why, Caulifla launches herself at Vegeta, pushing off of Kappa and going straight for an attack. Vegeta, within the blink of an eye, transforms into a Super Saiyan 2 and lands a kick so vicious on Caulifla that it knocks her out cold and sends her flying across the wasteland, just tumbling. Kel balls her fists in anger after seeing her sister just get destroyed like that, but she knows she's far out of her league this time as Kappa just throws an unconscious Caulifla on his back. Well, what are you waiting for? Don't make me repeat myself, Vegeta says, as Chapter 4 of Dragon Ball Kakumi brings us to our next destination in Universe 6, but someone's stalking Hit. If you guys have been enjoying this epic Dragon Ball fan manga and want to check it out for yourselves, the link to the website as well as Rinko's Twitter will be down below in the description box, so be sure to go check the both of them out and keep showing support for this masterpiece, please. Don't forget to have those notifications turned on to never miss an upload as soon as they go live, and if you haven't already, consider leaving a like on this video as well, as it really helps out a ton. Be sure to follow on both Twitch and Twitter to stay up with me and all Dragon Ball and anime related content, but without further ado, Over on planet Pillar, Hit is patrolling the lands as nearby, we see someone trailing him in a cloak. As Hit continues down his path, a giant bug begins retreating towards his burrow as Frost begins to succumb to the effects of the extreme heat on this planet. All of a sudden, Hit readies himself to attack. He's about to use one of his assassination techniques, Frost says, but in an instant, Hit now has his hand to his neck. "Tell me," Hit begins, "you have any other brilliant ideas for tailing a man born to hunt?" he asks. "Who hired you?" Okay, calm down," Frost says, putting his hands up. "Nobody hired me. I only work for myself. In fact, I want my revenge," he says, smirking. Back on planet Sadala, it seems that Vegeta and the others have arrived at the palace, but at first glance, he doesn't see much of anything. "Look down," Kaba says. It's then that we see a massive utopia of Saiyans roaming a palace with insane infrastructure, reminding me of some ancient Greek civilization or something. Vegeta's eyes begin to glow at the sight of the mighty kingdom built for the mightiest Saiyan, as Kaba asks Sprout, a nearby pilot, to escort them to the king. Caulifla, being asleep this entire time, all of a sudden wakes back up aboard the ship and begins spazzing out again, accusing Vegeta of kidnapping her as Kaba continues to try and hold her back. As the commotion aboard the ship continues, the palace readies itself for visitors, as we later then see the king himself walking the corridors along with his guards as a messenger tells him that a strange individual claiming to be from another universe requests an audience. "Fine," the king replies, as the messenger tells King Sadala the visitors are waiting in the main hall. "If that's the case, let us go to them," King Sadala says, as for the first time in Kakumi, we see the king of the Saiyans in all of his glory and royal attire. As the king enters the main hall, the electricity can be felt in the air as he and Vegeta glare at one another for the very first time. The king and the prince, face to face. "Let me introduce myself. I am King Sadala," he says as he approaches the group. "And what is your name?" he says to Vegeta as Vegeta answers. "Young traveler, I heard that you came straight from another universe," he says to Vegeta. "What is your story? What are you doing in this place?" he asks. "I have no time to lose with your stories," Vegeta says. "I came for—" But the king cuts him off mid-sentence, saying that listening to or telling a story is never a waste of time. "Is it?" he asks, glaring at Vegeta again. After a short pause, Vegeta answers that in that case, "Tell me yours. I had never seen a place built in depth like this." "There is a reason for that," the king tells him, as he says that their people have not always known peace. "I don't know how Saiyans are in your universe," he begins, "but in this one, we ruled through submission and violence. Indeed, I was once an illustrious warrior driven by my thirst for battle and power. We were just a wild race, our only essence being battles. We were losing our minds. Ancestral tales from our planet referred to monkey tales, but it seems that by the simple fact that we did not use this power, we would have lost it over time. The people were divided, so King Sadala of this era proved once again his legitimacy by bringing the whole world together by even interspecies alliances and stood up to opponents thanks to this interbreeding. At the beginning, I was just a simpy army general, adhering to the king's ideals and supporting him. But through unparalleled loyalty, I rose through the ranks and was recognized as the right hand to the king. The years passed, and from battlefield to battlefield, I saw my brothers in arms being killed while my loyalty to the king grew stronger. I was used to seeing blood. Let the scar on my face be witness, but this time was one too many. He called himself Gherkin the Bloody, the king goes on, as he remembers a fearsome foe. He was the man who hated the king more than his own demons. Eternal runner-up, the king had beaten him again and again, but to spare this man each time was fatal for him. I couldn't bear it. As we then see a flashback of Gherkin boasting the head of the king in his grasp like a trophy after what I'm sure was a truly epic battle. Night and day I hunted him down, driven by hatred, but to my amazement, the king goes on, The relief I coveted by killing Gherkin was ultimately an illusion. Shoving my fist into his stomach didn't fill the void I felt. When I removed it, I saw nothing but the emptiness of an endless tunnel. This shape, which was engraved into my memory, gave its shape to the current Sadala Palace. Since the previous king had not sired any offspring, he says, and because of my hierarchical position, my people unanimously voted for me to succeed him. Even today, I can't look at myself without thinking of all my lost brothers. When I came to power, I vowed to perpetuate the ideals of our former king, to put an end to all these childish wars and reunite our camps. The braid I wear, I make it every morning to remember it and stick to it. A Saiyan who does not stand by his convictions is a usurper, the king says. All this talk to tell you that I think I know why you came to us, the king says proudly to Vegeta. But it will be without us. Goodbye, he says surprisingly. This doesn't faze Vegeta in the slightest because all of that talk and then an answer of such nature only proved one thing to him about such a king. I'm starting to understand, Vegeta says smirking. You're afraid of death, he says to the king. This utterly disrespectful but possibly somewhat relative comment to the king sends a shockwave throughout the room as the Saiyans had never dreamed a person would one day disrespect their king like this. How dare you, King Sadala says as Vegeta just smirks. However, his next move is beyond surprising. As Vegeta recalls his past transgressions, humbling himself in the wake of Saiyan royalty, he bends the knee. Vegeta, the mighty prince, bends the knee to King Sadala, the emperor of the Saiyans, with Kale, Kaba, and Caulifla not being able to believe their eyes right now. King of Sadala, father of the Saiyans, Vegeta says, I implore you, whatever we do, thousands will die. It's up to us to act so it's not our own. A king who doesn't keep his promises is a usurper, he says. Later on planet Nibiru, Frost is still following Hit for whatever reason, continuing to beg him to do something. At least teach me one thing, he pleads as Hit continues to walk off. No, he replies. How am I gonna make him suffer if you don't help me, Frost asks. Do it yourself and let me do my job, Hit replies. I get it, that's your technique for making me suffer, right? No, Hit replies again. I see. It's a shame, I thought we were friends, Frost says, seeming to give up now. You might need some, by the way, he continues. You're alone all the time. It's depressing. If you say so, Hit replies, still walking. You know, you and I aren't so different, Frost tells him, persisting still. I know how it feels to be forced into a mold, which is why my kind is so persistent, he goes on. I'm telling you all this because it almost sounds like you don't like your job, or even your life, he tells Hit. This comment seems to spark a nerve within Hit as he begins to look lost in thought now. If you say so, he replies anyway, as he keeps walking, leaving Frost with the cold shoulder. Aboard the ship being piloted by Jocko, carrying Bulma, Broly, and the others on board, it's already been some time since they left as we see Bulma asking Jocko about how much longer it should be. 2 more days, he says. Bulma takes this as a joke as they can't still have this much longer to travel, but after he confirms he's serious, the entire ship erupts with impatience as it doesn't even seem like they have supplies for a multi-day trip. If you want, I took 6 legs off of a weird spider, Broly chimes in. I can give you some. I ate well before leaving. There's juice too if you're thirsty, he says, as everyone on the ship shivers in disgust, but decides to just let him be after he finishes the spider leg he was eating. It's gonna be a long journey, Bulma says, as the ship continues throughout space. Shall we act, one of the guards says behind King Sadala, as the king extends his arm. If someone has to act, it will not be you, the king says. Go on, young man. You interest me, he says to Vegeta. You heard the same thing we all heard, Vegeta says, still kneeling. So whether you like it or not, a war will take place. And you should know that this is not just a civil war between Saiyans. So here's my question, he persists. What will you do when the enemy enters your land? Welcome them with a white flag? As pacifist as you want to be, if you are really one of those kings you claim, your instinct will never allow you to do so. I can't guarantee that nobody will die, Vegeta says, getting back to his feet now. But I swear that I will make each and every one of you, my people, worthy of the name. I might not work miracles, but I'll make sure that all of us can look after our own. There's a lot of hidden potential among you. I'm sure of that, he says, looking over his shoulder at the three younger Saiyans, Caulifla specifically. All of a sudden, the air in the room becomes thin as a massive ki sends chills down everyone's spine. King Sadala briefly displays a glimpse of his own power as his aura illuminates the entire chamber and eventually the palace as Vegeta stands his ground but is still slightly impressed by the king. Gather the whole of Sadala's special forces, he says as he exits the hall. All announce them. You won't regret it, Vegeta tells him, as the king simply replies that he does not live with regret.